Welcome back to another edition of Finest City Insider. This time I'm excited because we have Leslie Peraza, team leader of Peraza Real Estate Team.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you for that introduction.
Thanks so much for joining today, Leslie. I want to get right into it. We've talked a little bit about this, but could you just kind of tell me a little bit again how you got into the business?
Wow. Well, it's been over 23 years. Originally, I was a cashier at Ralph's. I love my job. I love customer service, and I was there for 17 years. And in 2003, the strike hit, meaning that we were on the picket line. And after a couple of months, I basically told my husband, I'm jumping into real estate. Give me 5 years. Let me try it out. And if it doesn't work out, I will go get a real job. And here we
23 years later.
23 years later.
Time flies when you're having fun.
Yes.
So now, love watching this, especially with residential just being such a personal style of business. You now have your boys, your family in the business.
Yes. Never thought in my wildest dreams one boy would be added to the business, but now we have two of them.
Wow. And how did that happen?
Well, actually, Luis, during COVID, 2020, it was March of 2020. He's home for spring break, and he was going to be graduating from Gonzaga with his master's in May of 2020. And I basically said, "Party's over. You're graduating. What are you going to do? And you need to, start looking for a job." And he goes, "No, Mom, I think I want to join you. I want to, bring some new systems, and I really want to help you, and I want to try it out for a year." And I'm like, "What? Really?" and so I said, "Well, Mom works 24/7. This is not a part-time job, and don't do it for the money. Do it because you truly want to help people." And he goes, "No, Mom, I think I can do this. I think I can help you." And 6 years later, here we are.
Wow. And now Angelo as well.
Yes. And so Angelo was a surprise. He, as a sophomore at USD, he was undeclared. And he came home one day and he says, "Mom, I declared my major." And I'm like, "All right, medical field, engineer, what do you want to be?"
Baseball player.
And he says, "No, I'm going to get a bachelor's in real estate."
Wow.
And that was a pleasant surprise.
Very nice.
So he's been with me going on 2 years.
Well, congratulations, leading by example.
Thank you.
And Angelo now been in the business
Going on
2 years, already has his broker's license.
Yeah, so at USD, when you have a real estate bachelor's, you go straight to taking the broker license.
I see.
So it's an equivalent of 4 years of experience.
Wow.
So he was able to go straight to a broker.
Well, fantastic. Love seeing the growth in the Peraza family. Really, really do. And speaking of growth, now that you've been in the business 23 years, we were talking a little bit as well on just with the experience and real estate is you build these lifetime relationships. You've got to witness growing with some of your clients as well.
Yes.
Selling maybe their first condo or their first home, and now maybe multiple transactions with them. Would you say maybe the profile of your clients have changed, or what is the profile of your client right now?
Well, originally, when I first started, I was taking any client.
Sure,
when you're
of course.
starting, you're like, whatever you want me to help you with, I'll help you. But now, as my experience in investing and helping first-time buyers, which is really where my heart is, I really enjoy helping the first-time buyer. Because if I can give them a really good experience and show them that this is not impossible,
Right.
just follow our lead, follow what we need to, do to prepare you. Once they buy their first home, they feel like, okay, I have home ownership, let me sacrifice 3, 4, 5 years, and then let me come back and rent out that condo or rent out that little house and let me go buy my dream home. So that's where I'm kind of really shifting my just my experience to show people that you can buy multiple, properties, but let's prepare you. Let's kind of show you the pros and cons of being an investor.
Of course. And now, especially with your clients having so much time into real estate,
Yes.
I'm sure you're seeing some of those, what were first-time home buyers years ago, now convert to investors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think you have to work by example and kind of teach them, because
Sure.
it is a scary thing, becoming an investor, like the unknown.
Right.
But if you teach them, the steps and the processes of becoming a landlord and really teach them the right way, it's actually not as scary as it sounds. I
Yeah.
think you have to have a good accountant, you have to
course.
have a good lender, and of course a good realtor.
The whole team. Yeah, absolutely. And now with your sons being in the business, you have now 2 generations. So it's such a joy that you still be able to, fulfill your passion with still working with the first-time home buyers. Speaking of first-time home buyers, without a doubt, there's always going to be challenges in our business. But what would you say some of the challenges right now in our businesses, and how do you overcome those?
I think it's what people are hearing.
Mm-hmm.
I think I always tell my clients, because they always ask me, when is the right time to buy?
Right.
And I always tell them when you're financially ready.
Sure.
And really, that's the first step, besides them deciding that they're curious about wanting to buy.
Right.
What you see on the news, what a neighbor's doing, what a cousin's doing, like all of that is their experience. But when you come to Peraza Real Estate, we really take the time to sit down with you and kind of start looking at your profile and what you're trying to accomplish, right? And so we look at all of it. We'll look at their finances, we'll look at their credit. And so whatever that looks like, we're going to have a game plan.
Right.
And so, yeah, that's
absolutely.
Pretty much.
And we see with, like you mentioned, almost some of the media does a good job of doing what the media does versus clarifying. But without a doubt, maybe some of the challenges being affordability.
Yes.
And with low inventory. How have you kind of come up with some solutions to those two things?
Well, I think it comes down to what the budget is and
Sure.
what they're making. And we're having a couple of situations where they're coming in with a cosign. I have a case right now where my client is a first-time buyer. He's in his early 30s. He works for the medical field. And the parents that haven't purchased in over 25 years came in as a cosign to help him. And so in that situation, he's going to buy a small condo, a 2-bedroom, 2-bath, and he's going to be renting a room.
Yeah.
And that's going to bring some income in to cover the mortgage. So
very smart. I mean, there's ways to get creative, like you
Yes.
mentioned, and sometimes that you have a cosigner, it's just a temporary, nice little
Yes.
foot in the door, and then with time in real estate, you're able to kind of disengage from the cosigner. So
Yes.
yeah, great idea.
And I think, and that's going to be happening a lot. I think there's a lot of, young people that are making good money, but they just need that little push. And I think, obviously, as a parent, we want our kids to succeed. And I think
Sure.
there's going to be a point that we're going to have to help them, especially in this economy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then you mentioned just with some of the, misinformation that you hear, just talking to, different people that aren't even in the business. What would you say some of the biggest misconceptions are right now in our business?
I think a lot of people feel like they have to come in with 20% down.
Right.
I think that's huge. And when we're working with first-time buyers, or even working with somebody that's probably lived in a home for 25 years, now they're ready to possibly downsize, we can rent out their current home and go buy as a primary resident. You don't have to come in with 20.
Sure.
Minimum down payment, FHA, is 3.5% down, even 3% down conventional. So really, it's just providing that information so they can make the best decision for themselves.
And you're right. It's amazing how, again, the lack of knowledge that's out there, as much as we're in the business and the day-to-day and we're so used to it. I still had a buyer or a borrower who's owned multiple homes and is looking to buy an investment property now. I'm sorry, not an investment property, but the third or fourth move-up property.
Yes.
They were surprised that they were able to put 5% down. They were saving for 20% because their other agent told them they needed to, and they found out that their mortgage insurance was $150 a month and still was only able to put 5% down.
That's amazing.
So it's surprising what information, or the lack of information. So I'm glad you're here today to educate us. Now, when we've talked about some of your other kind of profile of maybe some clients that have some equity in their properties,
Okay.
and they're starting to think about being investors, how do you coach them through that? As you mentioned, some of them are a little bit nervous to start
Hesitant.
investing. How would you say, what are some of the first steps?
I think the first step is just to sit down with your advisor, with your realtor, and kind of talk about what their goals are. I think one of the biggest reasons why people don't move forward is they don't have all their boxes checked in their mind. And
Right.
so our job is to say, let's see what the options are. If you've been in a property for over 25 years, at this point you're probably sitting on $500,000 of equity.
Wow. Absolutely.
If you're in your 60s and you probably don't need the bigger home, or depending on your tax bracket. I mean, there's so many reasons why you should buy real estate.
Right.
And I feel, just me personally, I feel that you need to kind of explore that information in order to make that decision. But there is opportunities out there, and why not purchase something that you can have passive income coming in?
Absolutely.
So.
And you mentioned a good, just an eye opener, how you said a lot of people are sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity. And what an amazing way to be able to, difficult to think, to be able to save that amount of money. So it's almost that term of much easier to invest your way to wealth versus saving your way to wealth. So that's quite a bit of appreciation.
I know, and I'm going to just give you an example. I'm personally in a situation, I just had this conversation with my husband last night. There's a triplex of an opportunity out there. And we're not really looking, but now it caught our eye. And so now we're talking to our lender to kind of look at some scenarios, because we are sitting on a lot of equity.
Sure.
And so now, obviously today's April 15th and it's tax day. And so how can we invest some of our equity and leverage to try not to, I'm either going to pay the IRS more money, or I need to get more write-offs. So I'm personally working on possibly making a move, which wasn't in my, in my future.
Sometimes the opportunity presents itself, and like you mentioned, we've got to be ready and open to exploring, and that's great. It sounds like you're exploring some, cost segregation option where, like you said, I'd rather invest the money into a property versus write a big check to the IRS.
I know.
Yeah.
So I think it's just important to know that doesn't, like I always tell our clients, just because you're talking to us today doesn't mean you're going to go buy tomorrow. But let's get you prepared. It might take us a year.
Right.
It might take you a year to kind of digest if this is what you want to do. But we have opportunities every day, but you need to be financially ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then, we were talking earlier, but what kind of trends are you watching right now, whether buyer trends, seller trends, investor trends? And the reason why I'm asking this is, every market kind of has its go-to investment or purchase if you're buying, or sellers need to follow, certain formula to successfully sell your property. What type of trends are you seeing right now?
Well, I think one is multi-units. We have a lot of buyers very interested in multi-units. A lot of the young generation are thinking of buying a duplex, living in one, renting in the other, and then in a couple of years they can rent all of it and then go buy their single family residence. So that's a huge trend right now. Yeah,
that makes total sense. And with sellers right now, and I watch the way the Perazas have such a defined formula when you list your properties, and with the challenge of a little bit more inventory than we're typically used to, I'm still seeing the Perazas move their homes in a very reasonable, or actually quick manner. What is different about your process when other homes are sitting?
Well, thanks for asking that. Well, we call it the Peraza touch. Sure. And when we go into a listing, obviously we walk the property, we give them a professional opinion on to prepare the property, because a lot of times a seller right now probably has oak cabinets, or has an old whatever that is. I mean, they have no upgrades in their home.
Sure.
And so I think it's important to know that right now a buyer is paying top dollar. The rates are higher, so they don't really have the extra money to go in there and remodel the home.
Of course.
So we're doing basic things like we're painting cabinets, we're painting we're painting walls, we're exterior painting a home, we're going in there and possibly putting some new windows or new flooring. So it's just the basic cosmetic items that sometimes could be minimal, but it can be a huge
really
impact
make a difference
on the final price.
Yeah, and I think, Leslie, to not be humble, you say very basic, but there is other agents who, take on a listing, take some photos, and it goes on the market. So the way I've watched your team go in there, and like you mentioned, basic, but you're actually prepping the home and presenting it in its best way, and it's making a difference.
Yes. I can give you an example. We have a listing coming up in National City in a couple weeks, and my clients, I sold them that home 10 years ago. They're actually going to be relocating with family out of state, and so their money's really minimal. Like all the money's in their equity, and so they're living with family while we put the home on the market. And on that one, all we're doing is painting exterior, painting interior. We're adding a couple of new light fixtures in the bathrooms. We're painting the cabinets, and it's going to look amazing.
Absolutely.
It's going to look amazing. And so just little basic things like that we came to them and said, if you want to get top dollar, we got to invest a little bit.
The details matter,
So,
especially right now.
yes.
And I think what we were discussing earlier, of course, with the affordability, the inventory that has almost doubled or tripled since months ago.
Yes.
Buyers have more options.
Yes.
Buyers are picky right now because of affordability. So really the way you're presenting the property and pricing has a strategy as well.
It does. So our strategy when we meet with our client, we give them a market analysis. We talk about if we were to list the home today, this is our recommendation. But it might take us a month to get the home ready. So what we do is literally 24 hours before going live, we're still going to reassess
Sure.
if there's any new listings.
Things could have changed.
Anything has sold. And then we're going to give them the recommendation on a set price or a range. So there's a lot of strategy behind just listing a home. This
Sure.
is not about putting a for sale sign in a front yard.
Of course.
There's a lot of strategy and a lot of thought before we go live on a property.
And that's what I think the difference that I've noticed with your team is that you can't just have one or the other. You can't have the presentation without the pricing strategy or the pricing strategy without the presentation.
Correct.
You guys have truly, figured out how to do both, and it shows. So
Thank you.
very well done.
Thank you very
well
much.
done. Now, just as a closing question, I really do like to ask this, Leslie, because I am honored to have you and all of the Perazas and every team member join Finest City. But I'd like to ask you directly, with so many brokerages out there, why Finest City?
Well, it was 2 years already this past October, and I've been with the big companies, and
Sure.
they were great, and after 23 years, we really wanted something more like a boutique style, more like a family, and that's what we get at Finest City. It's a family.
Absolutely.
And you being part of that as our leader, we're very blessed and grateful because all of your knowledge and all of that experience that we're learning from you is very inspirational. So yes, Finest City is family.
Yeah, it's been great to do this together. So thank you so much, Leslie. I really
welcome.
appreciate it.
You're welcome, Eric.